Welcome to Reasonably Sure. I'm not Michael Shore. Michael is away. I'm Mark Thompson. It's a pleasure to be here. And we have a very special guest today. I say that because he's done so much, but he's launched a cutting-edge app that involves divorce and family and separation. And it really is exciting to be here on this show. So welcome. And I welcome Jonathan Verk to Reasonably Sure. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, how are you, Mark?
Jonathan, I want to get into this app, which is super cool. coParenter is what it's called.
Yep.
And your whole world, coParenter.com, which is really about sharing responsibility in parenting and creating a family, even after a divorce. Before I get to that, you're a fascinating guy, almost to the point like I don't know where to start. But this isn't your first venture like this. Meaning you were involved in apps that people may know, like Shazam, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't launch Shazam, but I was there for 2.5 years as the executive vice president, working in business development and really running the television and media practice over there.
Helping to grow Shazam as a brand, in effect.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And Shazam did make it to television. They had a television show, didn't
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually wrote the first version of that show.
Yeah. And then also you were involved in other things. I mean, I know that involved in promotion for media promotion. I'm talking about television and radio promotion. These huge conferences. You actually were a prime mover on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, so I spent 8 years as the president and CEO of Promax BDA, which is a global association for entertainment marketing executives. You know, I like to joke that I spent 8 years going to and putting on the best parties I've ever been to.
It was a huge, huge thing. It was talked about even, like I do voiceover work and promotion and all the rest, and it was talked about as the thing. They did it all over the world.
Yeah. I actually launched the Don LaFontaine Voice Actor Awards, and I did that with Don's late Don's wife, and had a whole bunch of people. We like to bring attention to things that really don't get the attention that I think it deserves, and voice acting certainly is one of them.
Yeah. It's a robust industry, and yet people don't really pay much attention. So essentially, I was just trying to establish that you're a guy who this isn't your first rodeo in a way, and yet it seems most intriguing. And if I can say this, coParenter, which is the app, and there's a website, of course. It seems as though it might potentially have the greatest positive effect on society if it does what you say it does. Tell everyone what coParenter is.
Sure. So I appreciate you saying that, and we certainly hope that is the case as well. And we're definitely seeing seeing that reflected as people use the app. So coParenter is a co-parenting management and mediation platform. It helps separating, divorced, and never married parents manage and organize their co-parenting relationship, their responsibilities, and all of the things that they have to do to be good co-parents. And it connects them with an on-demand co-parenting professional who can help them resolve disputes, draft agreements, and synchronize the details of those agreements to their accounts, to their phones, which makes it easier to follow, easier to file, and really helps save them money, save them time, and ultimately keep them out of court from unnecessary litigation.
Well, the thing that happens, I guess, in so many of these cases is just that. There are disputes. They may even start over a simple thing like who's going to pick up Timmy for soccer.
Oh, all the time.
And then you end up in court.
Oh, yeah.
As a result of it.
So 80% of what people fight about inside and outside of court are everyday co-parenting issues. And when we say everyday co-parenting issues, they're probably even more everyday and commonplace than you're even thinking. The things that people fight about in court are who gets the kids on Christmas, and who's going to give Billy a haircut, and whether we can swap weekends, and being uncooperative and swapping weekends, whether Jimmy or Sally should be eating beans 3 times a week versus 2 times a week. These are the things that people actually fight about. And of course, there's more to it than that. When you're going through separation and divorce, when you're managing a co-parenting relationship, emotions are high. And unfortunately, up until now, pretty much the only path that people knew how to take was lawyer up, go to court. And 80% of the time, it's entirely unnecessary. It's like bringing, a nuclear weapon to a stapler fight, and it's just not the right venue to be resolving those kinds of disputes. And so coParenter is a tool that can be deployed at the earliest of intervention. So people are using coParenter even before they're divorced, even before yeah.
I went to your site and I kind of knocked around for a while, and you have like 3 stages. Sort of, you can get in early before things have really gotten ugly, or you get midway through.
Yeah.
I'm really, these are my words, not the words on the site. And then sort of later stage.
Before things get really ugly is a whole category.
That should be the wording, but it's not the wording. But I thought that was interesting because it suggests that, look, you guys can kind of interlock here in a safe way.
Yeah.
Or if things are kind of getting ugly, this might be a place of entry.
You know, we talk about it in the context of early, middle, and late stage intervention, right? There's going to be an intervention one way or another. We're hoping to keep you away from having the court or a judge intervene and make a decision for you. That's at the very, very far end. And unfortunately, a lot of people do end up there. But early stage intervention is that period of time where you're contemplating separation, you're contemplating getting divorced, all the way up to and including when you file with the court. That's early stage. And what we know for sure is that when parents can make agreements early, it has a profound impact on the quality and longevity of that relationship, which is better for kids. That's what we're all about. So if we can get in early, we can help parents establish parenting time schedules, establish a holiday plan, create agreements, foundational agreements that are accepted on both sides. And frankly, most of them are commonplace. Most of them are standard agreements.
Right. In fact, a lot of these issues you talk about are standard issues within this divorce and separation world. But what was interesting to me as I looked at this was that it becomes a clearinghouse, your app and your website, for so many of these different things that are logistical in nature, but that can also end up being conflict points.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
including, by the way, messaging. I thought it was interesting that you can text message through your site. So that becomes the place that is the reservoir, in essence, for all the communications.
So communication is definitely the central part of the app. And of course, there are a zillion places people could message, but those things were not built for this purpose. When you're talking about people going through separation, divorce, and co-parenting, there is, like it or not, there's always the chance for things to fall off the rails. There's always the chance for conflict. And people who have been through it know, right? People who haven't been through it don't know yet. They will. And documenting their communication, making sure that their communication is kind and safe with decreased acrimony is key. So we do things like language analysis, and we'll stop you from sending that message that you probably will come back and bite you in the butt later on. We'll help you communicate more effectively and more kindly, and we document it all so that if people end up in a situation where they need access to those, they're not taking screenshots, they can't edit it, it can't be altered, which of course all the other messaging tools, you can certainly edit those and
they can be manipulated and often are in these disputes, especially as they get hotter and hotter. I want to talk more with Jonathan Verk. The app is called coParenter. When we come back, I also want to talk about Jonathan's background, which is his personal background I'm talking about, which has a little bit to do with what we're talking about. So we'll be back. Reasonably Sure continues. Back, Mark Thompson here for Michael Shore. We're here with Jonathan Verk from coParenter. He is CEO and one of the founders of coParenter, which is an app that's really it's a clearinghouse for the logistics and the emotion and I assume all the other things that are associated with raising a child and raising a family, still connected after divorce and separation. And you were saying that so many of these things, we're talking about text messages sort of being there on the website. That is to say, instead of individual texts, you now text through the website, through the app, really. But on the app, there's so many of these other things, and these logistics and potential conflict points are so important that the courts are finding that by using this app, this is what you were telling me in any case, that people are ending up in court less as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. So the courts are absolutely ordering this tool across the country, across the U.S. and in Canada, and the judges are reporting back that they're seeing people who they're used to seeing come back over and over. They're called frequent flyers.
They literally call them frequent flyers?
They literally call them frequent flyers because they come in and they're filing every couple of weeks, and they're always in conflict.
And this is the thing. So much of the you didn't pick up Timmy for soccer, or can we swap weekends for Marianne, so much of that is informed by the hostility that was associated with the split, right?
That's absolutely. So a lot of that stuff is emotionally driven, and you're going to be making decisions and picking fights with people with your ex because you're emotionally charged, because you're heartbroken, because you're angry, because you're frustrated, because you have a loss of control, or or one of those things. But ultimately, that puts the kids in the middle. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Our whole platform, our whole mission is to keep kids at the center of the relationship, not in the middle, right? So you have parents who have these everyday, ordinary fights. When you're together with somebody or you have a relationship with somebody, it's stuff that you can easily work out, right? But as soon as people separate, it adds a whole new dynamic, and it makes it very, very difficult. So what our tool does, and we talk about it in the context of integrated online dispute resolution. What does that mean? It means that we have tools that help parents manage and organize and prevent conflict in the first place. Communication tools, scheduling tools, right? So being able to see, for example, your work, personal, and co-parenting responsibilities all in one view. Check-in. I mean, every day in every court in America, at least one of the 25 to 40 fights that a judge is going to see is going to be about one parent being perpetually late for pickup and drop off. Now, that is bananas. But if you think about court costing taxpayers $13,000 a day on average, and one of those arguments every single day in every single court is about picking up, dropping off late. What we do is we have a function in our, a feature in our tool, which is called check-in. You show up to where you're supposed to drop the kid off or pick them up, and you check in. Your co-parent gets a GPS notification saying, this is where I am, I'm where I'm supposed to be when we said. And when the other parent shows up, they can do the same. They check in and it resolves. So what that does is it eliminates that argument. It certainly gives transparency to see that where the parents were when they said they were going to be there.
That's a huge thing, and you're right. I never thought of this though, and bravo for bringing it up. You always think of divorce and these legal disputes involving separation and co-parenting as costing each one of the people involved a lot of money. Oh, yeah. But you mentioned, I think quite appropriately, that it also costs us, the taxpayers, money. Because where are they litigating all of this?
In publicly funded courts. Underfunded courts. The courts are underfunded by any measure, but the sheer volume of caseload that's in the court system is crushing them. America spends America spends $100 billion a year in family litigation. The vast majority of that is paid for by the taxpayers, and 80% it's argued and very commonly accepted by most judges that 80% of what's argued about in court, 80% of the resources that are used by the courts are to resolve everyday co-parenting issues for which court is the wrong venue to resolve. And so we've digitized that process.
Yeah, and the one thing that I didn't want to leave the show without following up on was you mentioned on the app, there is a way to mediate within the app certain rhetoric. So people start their communication on your app. They'll start with, I think that Timmy is getting a little too much junk food when you take him to the baseball game.
Are you calling me fat?
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And it's like, oh, you would say that because you were with that thin stripper who, and that's the reason we're not together anymore, or whatever. Right. I mean, in other words,
have you hacked my account?
It goes from zero to like a nuclear conflict pretty quickly. So you were saying that there is on your site almost an intervention that goes on to prevent it getting to that point, potentially. So how does that work?
Yeah, so we have various elements of AI and machine learning that are built into the tool. So things like recognizing when certain words shouldn't be maybe sent. So we surface a suggestion of maybe don't send this, right? That's some pretty, that's some lower level intelligence. What we also do is recognize when regular dialogue is inching towards conflict, right? So the system can learn about how you're communicating with your co-parent, and it's going to be different from co-parent to co-parent. But the system will learn when you're starting to get into a conflict zone, and will surface opportunities for resolving that conflict, potentially coming up with an agreement, a standard agreement, right? Swapping weekends, for example, or what have you, or connect you with an on-demand live co-parenting professional who can help you resolve that dispute. And those are trained co-parenting professionals. Retired family law judge, for example, may get on and help the two parties recognize that this is a co-parenting dispute, not a legal dispute. B, help you gain some context to what you're really arguing about, right? If you're fighting about, I want to take Jimmy to his soccer game, and no, I want to take Jimmy to his soccer game. The bottom line is Jimmy wants you both there. And so figure out how to both be there, because what'll happen over time is Jimmy's going to stop playing soccer because he doesn't want to deal with this fight. And that's going to impact him and have long-term emotional, mental health impact on that child. And that happens all the time.
And you're saying through the app, there can actually be some nudging toward that kind of resolution.
There's nudging and a live human who can help provide the context for a child advocate, somebody who is focused on putting that child first.
Who can really give you some direction in these cases. Jonathan Verk, coParenter is what the app is.
That's right.
And when we come back, Jonathan, I do want to mention and find out your personal history is part of what has sort of led you to this, to creating this app. So we'll get to that when we continue. Back with Jonathan Verk, who is the CEO and co-founder of coParenter, which is a fascinating app that apparently is keeping people out of the courtroom on these oftentimes such acrimonious divorces and separations that are then followed by all kinds of fighting that spills over onto the kids, which is really what I think you've repeatedly said has been your front and center concern. But I wanted to get to your personal history, because it seems as though you've come to this app as a result of personal history with divorce and separation.
Yeah. So I spent, I'm new to the divorce world. I am certainly not an attorney. I don't even play one on TV. I spent 20 years in the entertainment and media business, running small and medium-sized companies around the world. Like you said, spent a couple years at Shazam. But about 6 years ago, I started going through a really brutal litigated divorce. And I got a front row seat to see just how bad the system is for people going through it. It is truly designed to be acrimonious. It is definitely one person against the other. There are winners and there are losers. And that's the system. And as bad as it was for us, and it was terrible, we lost everything. As bad as it was for us, it was devastating for our kids, who for 3.5 years watched their parents throw everything out the window, including ethics, and go after each other through the court system. And I knew there had to be a better way. The things that we were told to do by attorneys, the processes that we were forced to go through by the system, pitted us against each other, pitted, from the children's perspective, pitted their parents against each other, and that was the system that exists.
Are kids asked to participate in that system in the sense that sometimes they're even called into the court to?
So sometimes, sometimes there are different judges.
It's the full range of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So at some point you had the light bulb moment?
Absolutely. I connected with one of my dearest friends, Eric Weiss, who's here and is a brilliant technologist, and kicked the idea around, and he thought, there's actually a hit there. And we very quickly connected with our third partner, Judge Cheryl Ellsworth. She is a former presiding judge of Riverside County, spent 10 years on the bench, 20 years as a judge, and is really known not just up and down the state of California, but around the country as a child advocate.
That was what struck me also when I looked at the team You have technology and you have business and you also have this person who really knows the court system and how damaging it can be, and also the virtues in trying to mediate disputes.
Absolutely.
We're running out of time, and I don't want to neglect asking you, as we do all guests on this show, tell me something that you're reasonably sure about.
I am very, very reasonably sure that coParenter decreases acrimony with parents, helps them put their kids at the center, not in the middle, helps them keep them out of court and away from unnecessary litigation. And I am reasonably sure, and only time will tell, that because of that, it'll have a profound impact on the next generation of children who are going to be raised with families that are dealing with their conflict appropriately, resolving their disputes, not dragging their kids and their families through the system.
Do the kids interact with the app at all, or is it just for parents? I guess
so right now it's primarily for parents. It's for parents. They can also add their team to the app, so they can add their lawyer, their therapist, their financial person, their caregiver. They can add people to the app and their child if they choose. And certainly on the roadmap, we've been there have been requests to have some entry point for kids to be able to access.
A separate area, maybe.
Especially the older kids who really can, and in many instances should have a say in how decisions are made on their behalf.
It really seems as though you've made this turn toward creating this app that could have a tremendous positive effect on society. This is an industry, this divorce and separation, and it seems as though you've found a way to maybe get us to a better place. Jonathan Verk, thank you so much. coParenter is the name of the app, and we wish you the best of luck with it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for this edition of Reasonably Sure. Michael will be back soon. Mark Thompson, thanks for joining us. See you next time.